everyone, and welcome to the 8th Annual UAGC Early Childhood Conference. You are in for a great treat with this session, A Colossal Way to Boost Children's Vocabulary with Colette Hiller. She's an author, Colossal Words for Kids, and you will not want to miss this. Colette Hiller is a writer, arts producer, and author of the critically acclaimed poetry books, The Bee on Your Thumb and Colossal Words for Kids. She spent many years as an actress on the London stage. Her children's rhymes have been featured on BBC Words and Pictures, and her children's album, Applehead, has been a hit with kids across the world, selling over 50,000 copies. Her citywide cultural projects like London Street Pianos and Talking Statues have been produced across the world. An advocate of early learning, she has spent many years as a producer at BBC Education. She believes that children are natural wordsmiths, receptive to the fun words of wordplay, and give them some good words and they will put them to good use. And Colette has been on our early childhood podcast, and this is an amazing, amazing session. So we would like you to take just a second in the brief spirit of transparency to look at this disclaimer that is on the screen. By taking a few moments to read through this disclaimer, you empower yourself with information regarding the boundaries of the knowledge sharing environment. Take one moment just to look at this disclaimer also. Then together we're going to embark on some exciting topics in early childhood education. And Colette, the floor is yours. I cannot wait for everyone to hear what we heard on our podcast.
Great. Okie dokie. So here I am. Thank you for the lovely introduction. This session is all about words, 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 and more words. Which words to teach children, when to teach them, and how best to teach them. It's a short and snappy session. It only lasts about 15 minutes, but it may change your approach to how we widen vocabulary of under 12-year-olds. Just last month, I was brought over by the New York City Library to do a session about words for about 200 9-year-olds. And after the session, the organizer was a little bit flabbergasted because she couldn't believe that I could hold their attention that clearly for that long. And I wasn't at all surprised, because children are natural wordsmiths. And if you give them a good word that they have an opportunity to use, they'll want to use it. So in the very same way that adults have a little moment of triumph when they find the right word for what they want to say, the exact same thing is true for children. And if they can grasp a concept, then they'll relish using the right word. So if they can grasp a concept of last, the last in a line, they can grasp the context of second to last, the penultimate, and then they'll relish using the word. Now, let me just go back to a picture of me, if you wouldn't mind. Can I just do that for a moment? Okay, so I'm on screen. Yeah. Because I'm just seeing a slide here, but it should be me, I think. The reason for teaching a vocabulary at a young age, and you may want to know that, and you may think, well, you know, the idea isn't to just raise irritating little boffins who can be smart Alex and pass exams very easily. There's a much, well, that may happen as a byproduct, but the real reason to teach young children big words are, for one thing, you want to invite them to take ownership of the English language. This language is theirs. They're not gate crashers. These are their words to use. That's one good reason. And another is a less obvious one. It's because knowing different words sharpens imagination. It makes us think with perception and precision. Now you can imagine if there were a load of different shades of blue, but you didn't know sky blue or aquamarine or or powder blue, you couldn't make that distinction. And good writing is about good noticing, and good noticing is about noticing distinction. And the very last reason to teach big words at a young age is because it lets us think differently. As the writer Samuel Beckett said, words are the clothes that our thoughts wear. Words are the clothes our thoughts wear. So without the right word, you couldn't actually have that thought. Now, this begs this question, that if language opens doors, and if kids are indeed natural wordsmiths, then why don't we teach big words earlier? Well, I actually think that it's a mixture of, of schools being busy and a slight lack of imagination. Tish, can I just check, is my face in view? Because I'm just seeing a slide.
Yes, okay. I can see you.
Good, okay. So how do 7 to 12s usually absorb language? Well, it's often with school vocabulary lists. And a school vocabulary list often mixes spelling with vocabulary. And the result, well, these are meat and potato words that you need to know, but they're not inspiring words that make you want to incorporate them in what you're writing. So a school vocabulary stroke spelling list for a 10-year-old might include a word like genuine or dangerous or descriptive. 3 perfectly good words, but nothing to make anybody's pulse race and nothing to make you want to immediately find out and use that word. But if you take a different shade of that word, if instead of genuine, you had disingenuous, well, that's really very interesting. And that's a concept that children must be perhaps more aware than other people, because they really sense honesty. What's disingenuous? And instead of dangerous, if you had a different kind of shade of word, say precarious, well, that's a little bit different and a little specific and sort of on the edge. That's interesting. And while there's not much a child can do with a word such as descriptive, the word nondescript is a completely different story. Can something really be so dull as to deserve no description whatsoever? Well, that's the word nondescript. And all of this was the thinking behind my new book, Colossal Words for Kids, which introduces 75 useful big words from ambiguous to zest. And these seemingly sophisticated words are really usually taught to older teenagers. But there's absolutely no reason that younger children can't enjoy them and understand them and use them just as well. Usually, a dictionary definition, well, of course, it's there and it's the official thing, but it can be a bit lumpy and a bit awkward and always a bit dreary to have to look things up. It also, a dictionary definition means you have to sort of transcribe it to what you're thinking about. Take the word retaliate. Now, retaliate, the dictionary definition is, I think, to do one action in return for another, which is not a very interesting, not a very useful definition in terms of could a child take that meaning and immediately put it to use. And yet, before releasing this book, I did a number of schools trials, and over 4 weeks in a primary school with 10-year-olds, I taught just 10 different words over a month, the same 10 words. And it turned out that retaliate was a particularly successful word, and you could hear it being used in the playground. Also, it's worthwhile mentioning that the teacher reported that these 4 sessions, one weekly, each lasting an hour, changed the way the children approached words. Their spoken communication grew, their written communication grew. You could hear words like retaliate in the playground, and perhaps most importantly, their appetite for words grew. And now I'm going to read you the rhyme for retaliate. So if I could have the first slide for retaliate, please. If somebody calls you an old kangaroo, you might retaliate and call them one too. If somebody tries to give you a thwack, you might retaliate and give them one back. But really, you mustn't respond in this way. No need to retaliate, just walk away. So within that rhyme, they are hearing the word retaliate used in context 3 different times. And by the time you read that rhyme with them 3 times, they will know the word. And what you have to do before teaching the rhyme is teach them to say the word. And that takes 3 or 4 minutes. It's a new word, lots of syllables. And so you might do a call and response type thing, like retaliate, 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 retaliate. And you say it in all different words, in different voices. And then as you read the rhyme, you beckon them in to say the word, and I'll do it one more time. If somebody calls you an old kangaroo, you might retaliate and call them one too. If somebody tries to give you a thwack, you might be tempted to give them one back. But really, you mustn't respond in this way. No need to retaliate, just walk away. And at the bottom of that slide, you'll see a quote. And the quote is from Booker T. Washington, and it says, "It often requires more courage not to strike back than to retaliate." It often requires more courage not to strike back than to retaliate. And that is a very good thinking skill point to discuss. Okay, back to me, please. Is it back to me? Because I just see the slide for retaliate.
Yes, it is back to you. What would you like me to do?
Put the camera on me, please.
The camera is on you. Do you want me to stop sharing?
No, it's just that I want to make sure that this is fine. I just want to make sure that I can only see the slide for retaliate and no picture of me. So I just want to check it was moving along. The next word I'm going to do from the book is the title word. And the title of the book, Colossal Words for Kids. And this is a word that they probably already know, but what they probably don't know is how to spell it. And sadly, I didn't put this little mnemonic into the book, and I should have, but I like to have little short lines that help people remember spelling. So this is what I should have put in, but a teacher or a parent is welcome to invent some such thing. And this is to help people remember the spelling. When something's colossal, there's always a cost. Inside colossal, there's always a loss. L-O-S-S. When something's colossal, there's always a cost. Inside colossal, there's always a loss. And here's the word. If something is huge, truly enormous, a mountain perhaps, or a brontosaurus, a royal palace, or a giant fossil, all these things could be called colossal. When something's so big, you stand back and say, whoa, the word colossal is handy to know. When something's so big, you stand back and say, whoa, the word colossal is handy to know. Thank you, and back to me, please. Right, so the next word is, back to me, please, is infinitesimal, infinitesimal. And sometimes it's very handy to do a little motion. So when I do this one, I make this little motion with my hands till you got a teensy square of light like this, and I look inside it and I get everybody to do that till it's really, really tiny. And here is infinitesimal, numbal. Okay, oh, hang on a second, please. Infinitesimal. If it's smaller than a flea, a dot, or a decimal, if it's really, really tiny, then it's infinitesimal. And then there's, I'll read that again, infinitesimal. If it's smaller than a flea, a dot, or a decimal, if it's really, really tiny, then it's infinitesimal. And there's a little quote from a book using the word in context underneath. And the quote is, "There was an infinitesimal pause, just one tiny breath." Now, the next word we're going to do is unbiased. Now, you may think it should be unbiased, I think. Oh no, you're right, it's voracious. Totally wrong, my fault. The next word is voracious. And this was a real favorite. This was a real favorite with children. And I thought I'd also mention at this moment that the important thing is that you're sharing delight. You as the teacher or as the carer, you're not force-feeding gruel here. You're sharing delight in a word. So, so that's very important. Okay, here we go with voracious. And this was a favorite too. Again, first I would teach them to say the word, and I would take some time. And I would ask them how many syllables, and I would go voracious, 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 voracious. There was once a tiger, friendly, kind, and gracious, but still there was this nagging fact: the tiger was voracious. He felt extremely hungry right from morning until night. There seemed to be no end to his voracious appetite. Then one day, accidentally, he ate a boy called Laurie. "I felt voracious," said the tiger. "Now I'm jolly sorry." So that is voracious. There was once a tiger, friendly, kind, and gracious, but still there was this nagging fact: the tiger was voracious. He felt extremely hungry right from morning until night. There seemed to be no end to his voracious appetite. Then one day, accidentally, he ate a boy called Laurie. "I felt voracious," said the tiger. "Now I'm jolly sorry." And that is voracious. Back to me, please. The next word that I'm going to introduce is the word unbiased. And unbiased may strike you as rather a big word and a very sophisticated word for a child as young as 7. And yet, who understands the principles of fairness better than a child? It's built in. So when you know the word unbiased, you also soon learn the word biased. And by knowing those words, it's very empowering. So let me give you unbiased. Right, sorry, to you. 1 second here. And here we are. A teacher can't have favorites. They must be just and fair. They shouldn't be especially nice to people with red hair. They can't be friendlier to some or treat one child the highest, they mustn't favor anyone. They have to be unbiased. So it's very interesting about that. Would really seem to be a difficult word for a child. But really, if you think about fairness and a child saying that's not fair, we don't act surprised at that at all. So unbiased is a perfectly good word to use and to teach. The next word is a bit ambitious. It's the word bravado. And the reason I included this really is that there are different shades of words. So there's courage, but there's also false courage. And children are really aware of what's real and what's false. And so just knowing there's a word for false courage is a bit empowering. It's also a jolly word to say. It sounds sophisticated, doesn't it? Bravado. So first I'd have a lot of fun teaching them to say the word bravado, bravado, bravado. And it's never bravado. It's always bravado. Okay, here's the rhyme for bravado. And again, I would bring them in to say the key word. Although his knees were trembling, he spoke with great bravado. I'm not at all afraid to fight a 10-foot avocado. I've done this kind of thing before, boasted young Ricardo. But inside he was terrified and feeling desperado. In no way could he ever slay a 10-foot avocado, for he was just a flea, you see, who boasted with bravado. That's a lot of fun to do that one. Back to me, please. The next word, I have to say, since writing this rhyme, I use it all the time because it's a very useful word, and sadly, many things fall into this category, and the word is disingenuous. And you know, in the same way that I thought the word genuine is itself a little bit dull, nothing is dull about this word. And you'll notice that within the rhyme, all the synonyms, which are all highlight, you really get a sense of all the synonyms and then therefore what it means. Read this rhyme 3 times and they will have this word down. Disingenuous. A thing that's disingenuous is something that's misleading. It isn't really genuine. It's meant to be deceiving. Something disingenuous seems honest on the surface, then leads you up the garden path, which is its very purpose. The wolf said to Red Riding Hood, "You look so sweet, my dear." But he was disingenuous. That wolf was insincere. For when he said that she looked sweet, the thing he didn't mention was she looked sweet enough to eat, and that was his intention. Thank you. Back to me, please. The next word is magnanimous. And I do a great deal of saying this word because it's quite hard to say. Magnanimous. And it's a super word because we want our children to be magnanimous. We want them to be this way. So here is the rhyme for magnanimous. Let's say there's just one piece of cake and you, in fact, are ravenous, but still you give it to your friend. Then that would be magnanimous. Or say your mate just won a prize you felt you should have won. Then it would be magnanimous for you to say, well done. An act that is magnanimous is noble and seems effortless. There isn't any showy fuss. It's just quietly generous. And there's a lovely quote from the Diary of Anne Frank on this page. And she says, I would never refuse anyone who wanted to peek at my answers. I was magnanimous with my candy, and I wasn't stuck up. And it's not quite used correctly, but we forgive her. And she was magnanimous. So there she is in this book. Back to me, please. The next word I'm going to say is the kind of word that people tend to teach young children. They tend to teach them. So the next word is discombobulated, but it's back to me now. When children are taught big words, they're often taught slightly silly words, like Shakespearean type of insults or codswallop type words, or a sort of group of a word for a group of hens, or a very specific word that they won't get to use. I wanted to use one word that fell into that category, that was just long and fun to say, and this has proved a favorite. And it's a useful word, and it's something that I often find myself in this position: discombobulated. When you're discombobulated, you're completely muddled. You're disturbed and agitated. You're extremely puzzled. Say your mother suddenly just turned into a seal. You'd be discombobulated. That's how you would feel. Or say one day your dad became a flying giant kettle. You'd be discombobulated, anxious and unsettled. When things are topsy-turvy and you're totally confused, discombobulated is the perfect word to use. When things are topsy-turvy and you're totally confused, discombobulated is the perfect word to use. Back to me, please. And the next word I'm going to be talking about is effervescent. It's a wonderful word. And sometimes, and I did it in this one, I can find a lovely little couplet to help make the rhyme a tiny bit easier to remember. And in this case, my couplet for effervescent, I get them to go pop, 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 fizzy and pleasant, pop, 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 effervescent, pop, 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 fizzy and pleasant, pop, 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 effervescent, pop, 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 pop. And I will now read you the rhyme. Again, I would start by teaching them to say the word effervescent and make them end the T so that they're confident in saying effervescent. And then say it in an effervescent way, effervescent. And here we go with the rhyme, and I would bring them in to say the word effervescent. It may sound complicated, but the fact is, it is not. Say effervescent slowly. You can hear the bubbles pop. When something's effervescent, it's not difficult to tell. Some drinks are effervescent, and some people are as well. When somebody is bubbly and sparkly and pleasant and they fizz like Coca-Cola, you could say they're effervescent. And back to me, please. The next rhyme is a favorite for me. And for this one, the word is precarious, but before you go onto the slide, let me tell you something. I do a kind of, first of all, I get them to say the word precarious, 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 and make sure they finish it. And finish the word with the S so that they're precarious, precarious. And so with precarious, I do, and you could try this once you've given them the word, and I'll start by reading the rhyme, and then I'll give you a little activity to do. Precarious. I think you might need to change the slide now. The next one, that's it. Precarious. Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall. And what a poor decision. He'd clearly put himself in a precarious position. Didn't it seem obvious that danger lay ahead? A wall is a precarious position for an egg. The reason it's precarious is that it's not secure. One slip and little Humpty would be scrambled egg for sure. And there's a quote from Harry Potter here, which is included in the page, and it says, Harry yelled as the shelves swayed precariously and more glass spheres began to fall from above. So they're hearing the word used as an adverb. And then I do a kind of a little game with this one. So I get them, I say something like, oh, I've got this $1 million vase. It's made of glass. It's very heavy. I'll just leave it here at the bottom of the stairs. And then the child or the children say, don't do that. And I say, why not? It's not a good position, they say. And I say, why not? And they say, it's precarious. And then we all go crash. Or I might say, I've got a beautiful Ming vase and it's very heavy. I'm just going to leave it here on the edge of the table. And the children say, don't do that. And I say, why not? And they say, it's not a good position. And I say, why not? And they say, it's precarious. And then we all say crash. So they hear the word and have fun making up a situation to use it. And now we're going to go on to my next slide, which parents will be very grateful for. And the next slide is replete. And really, if you're a parent and you cooked a wonderful dinner, you want it to be recognized and you'd like the child to be polite. So it's a very useful, it's a useful word. And I have a little couplet, which I teach with this too. I've had just enough to eat. Thank you. I feel quite replete. And I get everyone to say that. I've had just enough to eat. Thank you. I feel quite replete. And here is the rhyme for replete. If you've eaten far too much, you might say that you feel stuffed. If you haven't eaten plenty, you could say that you feel empty. If what you've had is just enough, not too little or too much, but just the right amount to eat, then you could say you feel replete. So that's if what you've had is just enough, not too little or too much, but just the right amount to eat, you could say you feel replete. And back to me, please. I mentioned before that if a child can understand a concept, that they're ready for the word. And if they know first and then they know last, then they really can simply master the one before the last. And it's really so super to have the right word on the tip of your tongue, the penultimate rhyme. This is the penultimate rhyme in this slideshow. So the rule is if they can understand the one before the last, then they're ready to enjoy using the word. And who wouldn't enjoy using a word like penultimate? So could I have the slide for penultimate, please? You'll find 8 lines inside this rhyme. The last one is the ultimate. The one that comes before the last is known as the penultimate. Whatever is penultimate is next to last in line. And this is the penultimate of 8 lines in this rhyme. And you can see in the picture, just because it's a bit cheeky really, but it's fun, I've introduced a really big word, which is anti-penultimate, which is the one before penultimate. And that is something that children will very much enjoy. And I'm going to go to my last poem before giving you some tips. And the last slide is what I very much hope this book is. And the word is riveting. It's hard to stop reading a riveting book. The story is gripping. You're totally hooked. You find it compelling. You're wholly engaged. A riveting book has you glued to the page. I'll read that one again because it's a quick one. Riveting. It's hard to stop reading a riveting book. The story is gripping. You're totally hooked. You find it compelling. You're wholly engaged. A riveting book has you glued to the page. And back to me, please. Now I'm going to just finish off this session by giving you a few tips and things a few tips that you should know as a parent or a carer. So the first one is less is more. 1 or 2 new words a week is enough. And if that sounds thrifty, it isn't. Ask yourself this: when was the last time you learnt a new word and learnt it well enough to actually embody it and use it? It takes some thinking to do that. A second point is please to choose the right time. Read a rhyme when they are receptive. And you might ask, is now a good time? And they'll say, time for what? And you say, time for a rhyme. Is now a good time? Time for what? Time for a rhyme. So only do it when there's receptive ears. It's a treat. You don't want to make them act like they're doing you a favor. They must want to listen. Don't do any heavy lifting. Leave all the dull words that don't find interesting to school or somebody else. You are just serving up delicious desserts, eclair after eclair, no spinach, just lovely words. Another point, don't forget to teach them to say the word itself before teaching them the rhyme, or asking them to join in the rhyme, because they have to feel comfortable saying the word. And that takes longer than you think. It takes about 4 minutes to learn to say a word. It would take you 4 or 5 minutes to learn to say a long Italian word and then to learn it. So think about it like that. When they read the rhyme, you must remember to bring them in for the keyword, because it's the participation that is fun for them. And it's the participation that means the meaning is not just told to them, but it unfolds for them. So they must take part. They have to feel active, and they cannot feel that they're just being spoken to. And some words in this book prompt thinking skills. I gave you one example with retaliate. But, you know, if there's an opportunity to discuss something about a word, that really hammers it in. So after unbiased, you could talk about judges. They might, what if there's an unbiased judge? What happens then? Children are flattered for when you ask them something that requires them to think and consider and respond. And the last thing to say is use the word all week wherever possible. So 2 words a week that you're teaching, but keep squeezing it into the conversation wherever you possibly can, so that adults and children and teachers, everybody is trying to use that word as much as possible. So I think that now is the end of my talk, and I hope you've enjoyed it, and thank you very much.
Thank you to everyone who has joined us today. I hope you will see another session. I am going to